Hi BookTube, it's Missy, and today I'm here to share with you guys my October wrap-up, or my Hallowicious Wrap Up. For the month of October, I read 11 books, which is super exciting. That is 11 novels. I know, I'm so excited. No graphic novels, so I feel like I redeemed myself. I know last month I read 11 books as well, but the majority of them were graphic novels, and let me just say, graphic novels are still reading books, but I like to challenge myself, and I was able to read a lot of full-length novels in the month of October, so yay me. This time around, I put my books in order from lowest star rating to highest star rating, and then my 5 stars I put in the scariest book, 5-star book first, and then the least scariest 5-star book last. So let's get started in the reviews. I do have to go to work, so this will be a little bit of my book review before, and then after work I will finish this video. So the first book I want to talk about is True Ghost Stories by Terry Deary. I received this from a friend in the UK, I believe. These are all UK ghost story legends. I would put it on par with the American Scary Stories from Alvin Schwartz, I think that's his last name. So they're not scary per se, but they are entertaining. The cool thing I like about this particular book is it has an intro. It asks you questions like whether you enjoy ghosts or believe in ghosts, and then it goes into the actual story. Now, once the story is completed, there are, let me find the page, it has like ghostly thoughts. So it talks about like definitions of what the ghostly word was. For this story was apparition, so it says what an apparition is, and explains how apparitions form or whatever. And then there are Halloween facts. So it'll talk about, this one has five different Halloween facts. So I think it's really cool. There is a transition between each story. I gave this book 3 stars. All of the stories, like I said, weren't scary. They're more like the white lady on the side of the freeway and the apparition of a dog. They thought they saw a dog, but the dog was at home. I did enjoy reading it. It was a really short collection of ghost stories. I just didn't think it was scary. The next book I want to talk about is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I gave this book 3.5 stars because on my scare factor, this was not scary. Also, I didn't enjoy the story as much as I expected to. I have seen this movie. I saw it a long time ago, maybe when I was in my early teens, maybe? I think that's when I saw it. Anyways, I enjoyed that movie for the most part. The characters to me seemed, you know, pretty well done. But in the book, all the characters are very flimsy. There are 4 main characters. There's 2 boys, Dr. Montague and Luke. Luke is the one who's going to be inheriting Hill House, and Dr. Montague is the one who's invited the other 2 to come to the house for research purposes. And then the girls, there's Theodora. She doesn't have a last name because she thinks she's amazing. And then there is Eleanor, or they call her Nell or Nellie. So Eleanor is she's 27, I think, in the book. Her mother just died. She spent her whole life taking care of her mother, so this is a getaway for her. She's invited to this house. She thinks it's going to be a great opportunity to spread her wings and try something new and get out of the clutches of her older sister. And then we have Theodora, who is snotty, stuck up, full of herself, thinks the world is her oyster. And her like roommate best friend just got in a huge fight, and so this is the perfect opportunity to let them cool off. So she goes off to Hill House to, you know, get away from the whole drama of her, you know, best friend slash roommate. So all four stay at this haunted house for about a week and a half. And the whole purpose of them being at this haunted house is to record and witness paranormal activity, so that way Dr. Montague can write a book to impress his colleagues at the school I think he works at, or whatever. I think he wants to write a book, but nobody believes in the paranormal, and he wants to prove that it exists. So he finds this true haunted house and goes about taking notes and documenting things. So this is, the house would be, like, I guess, the fifth main character, because it does have ghostly things that happen. But this is more of a psychological kind of book, because all of the people within the house itself are being manipulated by the house, and their emotions are being played out to their most negative. So if you guys have seen The Neverending Story, when Atreyu has to go through those trials, he gets to the looking glass and the old man says, this is the worst part of the trials, because you have to face your true self, and warriors who get there find out that they're not brave, that they're actually cowards. And so in this book it's kind of like that. So you have Luke, who is so, he has so much bravado, he thinks he's so cool, and then he finds out, in the story itself, that he's more of a coward. You have Theodora, who is glam and thinks the world of herself, and then she finds out that she's, a crybaby and can't control her emotions. And then there's Eleanor, who has always been very timid, and in the book she has become more outgoing and speaks her mind. And so you have all these differences in the characters, but what I found really lackluster is the fact that Theodora and Luke the entire time just make fun of their whole experience. So in order to keep their fear down, they talk over each other and make more and more jokes and become more and more sarcastic. And the way they treat Eleanor is very childish, which I really couldn't stand. The whole time they're like talking behind her back. Excuse me. And that might be her interpretation of it, because even though there are four main characters, the story is kind of told through Eleanor's eyes. And then the ending was very abrupt. Like, I knew something was going to happen, but I didn't expect that. And I think that's because I don't remember the ending of the movie. I don't know if that was in the movie. So I didn't know what to expect. So overall, I didn't like the characters in the book. The writing was still great. I do love Shirley Jackson's writing. It's very atmospheric, but the eeriness wasn't there, because it was so character driven, and I despise the characters, so I had to give it 3.5 stars. Alright, the next book I want to talk about, these are going to be my 4-star books, and the first one is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Again, this is a book that I wasn't fully invested in, so I gave it 4 stars. I wasn't scared. This is a movie that I've seen when I was a little kid. I saw bits and pieces of it. I don't think I've watched it the entire way, all the way through. I do finally have The Exorcist from Netflix. It was on a long waiting list, so it finally arrived in the mail, so I'm going to watch it so I can compare the books. But basically, this is about 3 main characters. There is Regan, or the devil, and then there is her mother, which at this moment I can't remember her name. What is her name? Chris. And then there is the Father Karras, who is looking after the family. So basically one day, Chris goes down to the basement where the playroom is in this old Georgian, is that how you say it? A Georgian townhome? I think that's the style of the house. Anywho, the mom goes down to the basement and she sees Regan playing with a Ouija board, and she's talking to this Captain Howdy. And for the longest time, the mom thinks that Captain Howdy is just Regan's imaginary friend. She doesn't think that the Ouija board is actually working. And then she has this great big party because Chris is an actress, and her actual movie set is in this town in Washington, D.C., and it is taking place at a college for Jesuits, or, you know, Fathers of the Catholic Church. And they're using some of the Jesuits as extras in the movie. So Chris has this party, and she has the director come, and a bunch of the Catholic priests and some old friends, yada yada. And then her daughter starts acting very strange. So the party breaks up. And then that night, that's when the fantastical happen. That's when the devil starts coming out and playing its part in the book. So Regan is now possessed, and she is speaking in different voices, and one thing after another happens. But the book isn't as scary as the movie, because with movies you have that visual effect. You can see the demon and the frost in the cold room and how everyone's freaking out, but in the book it's kind of like a recipe. So when you make a cake, you need eggs and flour and sugar and vanilla. And that's kind of like how the book was. It's like Chris goes into the room, then the devil, you know, throws her across, and then he starts cursing at her, and the mom cries, and she's getting weaker and skinny because she's, you know, fretting over this whole thing. So I'm sure this was a extremely powerful and scary book in its time because it was written in the 70s. But for a day, and you know, this generation, for my time of reading it, and after reading so many other horror books, this just wasn't that scary. Again, very entertaining. I absolutely loved reading it. I liked the fact that I could find out how the movie came to be from the book, but it just wasn't scary. And for the most part, instead of it being like a scare factor, it's more of a book about belief. Do you believe in the devil? Do you believe in God? Because Chris is an atheist, and she doesn't understand how this is happening to her daughter when there are no religious beliefs in the house. And then there's Father Karras, who is losing his faith and then doesn't understand how the mom could be asking him for help because, again, she has no religious background. How can a child be possessed from the devil if they don't believe in God? And all this stuff. So it is what it is. 4 stars. If you loved the movie, I would definitely read the book. It is worth the read. It's just wasn't scary in my opinion. Okay, where were we? So the next book that I read in the month of October is Burying the Honeysuckle Girls by Emily Carpenter. I already have a full review about this book down below. I will leave the link so you can check it out if you wish. This is an adult mystery. It's about a girl named Althea who finds out that her mother went crazy, like she was schizophrenic at the age of 30, and she found out from her father that it is hereditary, that all of the women in her family end up getting schizophrenia at the age of 30. Now Althea is like, that doesn't make any sense. How can you catch schizophrenia at a certain age? Like, that's something that, yes, it's hereditary, but it's something that slowly progresses. You don't just are sane and normal all your life and then at 30 become schizophrenic. So she decides to uncover the mystery of her family's lineage and why everyone keeps talking about her mom and grandma and the great grandma having schizophrenia. And then there's the little side story of the Honeysuckle girl, and she has to figure out the mystery of this woman. She does have a childhood friend that helps her out, but I consider him more of a, I mean, he is a side character, but he's pretty flat, and I really didn't enjoy the help that he provided in the book. So I did give this book 4 stars. Again, it's an adult mystery. If you are interested, I thought it was pretty good. The next book that I read was The Gathering by Dan Pawlowski. The series name is going to be called Shadow House. I think that's how it works. Anyways, I thought this middle grade was super fun. So here is the ghostly picture. There's the real girl. You can see that. There are really cool like old pictures in here, as you can see, which I really liked. And then on every picture there is a little shape. And if you go to, where does it say? Right here. You can download an app and then draw in the shape that the app asks for, and then it gives you like a side ghost story, which I thought was really fun. I gave this book 4 stars, right? Yes, I gave this book 4 stars. It kind of reminded me of Welcome to the Dark House by Laurie Ferrara Stullers. I think that's how you say her name. If you read Welcome to the Dark House, which is a YA horror novel, you'll totally like this one. This is about 5, I think, kids. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 5 kids. 5 kids that have received invitations to a house. And when they get there, they realize that all of their invitations were different. One girl is from an orphanage, and she's told that her great-grandmother or her great-aunt, I think it's her great-aunt, has realized that she was at this orphanage and wanted to bring her into the home and, you know, be a family to her since she has no other family. One is a music prodigy, and his invitation letter is telling him that he has been invited to this new school. And then there's other letters that, you know, the kids get. And once they arrive at this house, they realize there's something completely wrong with the house, and they're locked in and they can't get out, and they meet all these really scary creatures. I put one of them on Instagram, so I think, maybe I didn't. I'll show you a picture just so you know what I'm talking about. So right here, you see that? Right there, you see that kid with the dog mask? So the 5 kids meet all of these other kids with like masks on, and they don't know what's going on, and the kids are trying to attack them, and they're freaking out, and the house is trying to attack them. And so it's a very good, creepy middle grade. There's a little bit of violence in it, not rated R violence, more like a PG-13 kind of violence. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. The sequel comes out next month in December, and I'm totally buying it. It left you on a cliffhanger because there is a second book. But yeah, that just made me even more interested in reading it. So if you like middle grade, if you like creepy pictures, if you like stories about survival, like people being stuck somewhere and trying to get out, definitely pick up this book. Because it's got everything. The haunted house, the creepy children. Children are always creepy. So yeah, loved it. 4 stars. The next book that I read was The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. Finally read it. I'm so excited I did. Again, this is a 4-star read for me. It wasn't scary. I have like a very high threshold for scary. So this book is about the, what are they called? The Lutz, that's right. About the Lutz family. So if you have watched this movie, the newer edition that came out in 2005 with Ryan Reynolds, the tone of the movie is completely different. So just keep that in mind if you have watched the movie but haven't read the book. George Lutz is not homicidal in this book, and he's very caring about his family, which totally threw me off because I've seen the movie and the father is homicidal. So it didn't make any sense why he wasn't in the book, which drove me crazy. I hate when directors change the tone or the overall emotion of the character or the story, because that is what the story is about. You can't change it just to get more people in the seats, because that just makes me angry. Anyways, rant over. This is, like I said, about the family Lutz. So there's George and what's the lady's name? Kathleen. And Kathleen has 3 kids, and they all move into this house, which is the Amityville house. And they move in about 6 months after the Defoe family are murdered, and the son is put in prison. And when the realtor is telling them, hey, by the way, the reason why this house is so cheap is because a family was murdered here. The Lutz family's like, that's okay. We don't care about the murder. And we don't care so much that we're going to buy the dead people's beds and some of the furniture because we don't really care. Which, to me, was one of the creepiest things of the book. How do you buy dead people's things? It's one thing to wear a dead person's clothes because they are no longer there, but it's not like I would wear someone's clothes that they were murdered in. Like, the kids were murdered in their beds, and the parents were like, yeah, we'll buy the dead kids' beds. They're just like egging the spirits on. So they spent, what is it, a month? 28 days? I can't remember. I read this book so long ago already. So they spent a good chunk of time in this house, and it got progressively worse. And just like what I said about The Exorcist, how it was like a recipe for horror, the same thing with the book. It starts off with creepy noises, and then there is a disturbance in the furniture, and then there's like a slime, and then they see, you know, all these flies in a room. The kids are kind of getting creeped out. The dog is barking for no reason. Doors are being ripped off their hinges. But again, to me, reading about that kind of stuff isn't as scary as actually watching it in a movie. So the overall story was great. I liked that not only did the house affect the Lutzes, but it affected the father that came to bless the house. Yeah, and I liked the fact that, you know, the father was different than in the movies. He actually cared about his family, was trying really hard to figure out what was going on and why these things were taking place. But it was almost like I don't know, kind of like a Mulder and Scully, like they're so used to it by the end that they're kind of just like, oh well, you know, until something really, really bad happens. And they're like, okay, we really have to get out of this house. It's like if one chair moves in my house on its own, I'm done. I'm out. There's no reason to stay longer. I don't care how much money I put into the house. Ghosts equal not a good time. So, yes, if you haven't read this book, I'd pick it up. It was entertaining, just wasn't very scary. Next book. I finally finished Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. I started this book back in July, and it wasn't grabbing my attention right off the bat. Maybe I wasn't in the mood for a crime thriller. But once I got it on audio, I just was eating it up. It was so good. I absolutely loved it. So this is about a detective who is retired. His name is Bill Hodges. First name Kermit, which is super funny. Kermit Bill Hodges. And his very last case before he retired was the Mercedes killer case. So a man gets into a Mercedes and plows through a whole bunch of people and kills like 8 and injures so many more. And that was the last case that Bill Hodges worked on, and he never solved it, and then he retired. And so now he's just super bored. He's getting fat. He's just watching TV. You know, kind of having suicidal thoughts because, like, he's so bored and was used to, like, action and everything, and now he just doesn't know what to do with himself. That, and he's also a divorcee, and his daughter's grown and doesn't want anything to do with him, so he's lonely. One day he gets a letter from the Mercedes killer, Mr. Mercedes, and that sparks an interest in him. He's just like, oh my God, I'm going to solve the case, like on the sly, and I'm going to figure out who this guy is because, you know, I have all these skills and I think I will do a better job than the police will do, especially since I have so much time to devote to this case. And so the Mercedes killer and him both are exchanging emails and egging each other on and egging each other on. And I just love the cat and mouse chase about the whole thing because we know who the killer is. Because there's two POVs in this book. It's the detective and the killer. So we're not like trying to figure out who the killer is. We already know right off the bat. But I liked the teasing between each other and like figuring out what's going to happen next and how one is going to go farther than the other. I really liked the side characters, Jerome and Holly. They really brought an extra oomph to the books. I always like Stephen King's things, and so I'm a little biased, but it was absolutely amazing. I listened to it on audio, and the narrator was Will Patton, who was in the Armageddon, and a couple other movies, which I can't think of at this moment, but his voice is amazing. And so I definitely cannot wait to pick up 2 Finders Keepers, because I think he also narrates the audio book. What else do I want to say about this book? I gave it 4 stars because I already knew it was a trilogy, so I knew that the ending would have a certain, I don't want to give it away, but I knew what the ending was going to be because, again, it's 3 books. So it has to progress, right? So obviously Bill Hodges doesn't finish the case in this book because there's 3 books. That was my only thing. But it wasn't a writing thing. It wasn't a plot thing that gave it a star down. It was just because I already knew what the answer was going to be at the end, which is kind of my fault for not reading the books when they came out. Anywho, I loved it. Pick it up. I recommend. The next books I want to talk about are all of my 5 stars. Like I said before, I have put the highest 5-star on top and then all the way down to the lowest 5-star by scare factor. Next, I have Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This is the first Josh Malerman book I've read, and I absolutely love it, and I want to read all of his stuff. Oh my gosh, this book was terrifying. If you want a nail biter of a book that keeps you on edge, like your heart is pounding the entire time. I think, you know, The Shining is super stinking scary. And then I read Hex this year, which was terrifying. I put that as number 2 on my scariest book list. This would be number 3 because just like if you're scared of the dark because you don't know what's out there, these people are in the dark all the time. Like, not 24/7, but pretty stinking close. Because if they look out the window and they see the monster on the outside, they become, you know, killing maniacs. They will kill themselves and everybody around them. So the main character in this book is pregnant. And when we meet her, she has already had her kids. So it goes from the present to the past in like flashback formation. So she talks about what's going on, and then she gives you a little bit about what happened before, and then she talks about what's going on now, and then she talks about what's happened before. So you get the entire story, but I like that it was flashbacks to kind of like bring you up to speed. So the mom is blindfolded, her kids are blindfolded, and she needs to figure out a way to get to point A to point B without her children dying and herself. And the rest of the book just explains how it came to be where she is now. It was just so scary. It's so scary because there's an unknown. You don't know what's happening outside. You're running out of food. You can't leave your shelter because if you do, that monster might get you. You don't know where to go. And being blind in itself, you know, especially if it's right away. Like when people are blind at birth, they kind of get used to the hearing aspect, to like, you know, sharpen their senses, their feeling and their touch and smell and all that. When you become blind, you know, in your late 30s, and it's like a huge change, especially if it's only blind at certain times. So like you could open your eyes if you're in a secure area but be blindfolded all other times. You never really get that sharpness in senses when it's periodic. It's not all the time. So just freaks me out. The whole book freaked me out. I was like, oh my god, are they gonna die? Are they gonna die? Are they gonna die? Are they dead? No, they're not dead. Okay, are they gonna die tomorrow? Are they gonna die now? It's like the whole time, just are they gonna die? If you haven't read this book, I would highly pick it up. It was a very, very good monster book. The best monster book I've read to date. All right, my next 5-star is Mary Unleashed by Hilary Monahan. This is the sequel to Mary the Summoning. If you guys don't believe that YA can be scary, pick up these books, because besides The Merciless, which I don't have shown here, The Merciless from Danielle Vega was the scariest YA book that I've ever read until I started reading these books. I read The Summoning in January or February of this year, and then I finished it off, the duology. This is a Bloody Mary retelling, and it is so gory. It's so gory. It's so perfect. Hilary Monahan is like horror queen of YA. I can't say how much I loved this book enough, because, like I said, it freaked me out. It made me not want to go and look in mirrors. It definitely made me not want to go look in mirrors at nighttime, like in the dark. Just so well written and creepy. And the storyline, like you at the beginning of the first book, you get the summoning of Bloody Mary, and then it takes you through the whole thing, and then this book is the conclusion. So you get to learn about Bloody Mary's life, like how she came to be, why is she a murderer, like why is she, you know, so creepy, what happened to make her flip a switch and decide to do what she's doing as a ghost. And so just amazing. 5 stars, wonderful. All right, 2 more books. The second to last 5-star is Alice by Christina Henry. This is another adult horror novel. Wow. This is an Alice in Wonderland retelling that just was so amazing. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it justice talking about it on video. And of course, all of my Goodreads reviews are always going to be linked down below. So this one has Alice, and she's in a mental hospital when we meet her. She has a cellmate named Hatcher, and they speak through a mouse hole in the wall. They've been best friends, or I don't know if it's best friends, companions, whatever. They've been speaking to each other for the last 10 years, and that's how long they've been in the asylum. One day the mental hospital burns down, they escape, and they're escaping from the mental hospital into Old Town, which is where Hatcher, the cellmate, is from. And Hatcher's trying to look for clues, and Alice is trying to, you know, escape. She doesn't have anywhere to go. Her family has disowned her because now she is, you know, crazy in their eyes. And so she just follows Hatcher around. And then she realizes that she's not your typical girl. She's got powers that she didn't know about. And Hatcher's trying to get her through this old town without dying. Because in the old town, there are head bosses like the mafia, and they have the old town separated by, like, quadrant? Is that how you say it? Like sections. So there's Caterpillar, who is a sex fiend, and he collects exotic girls and keeps them in jars and makes them perform sexual acts on men. And then there is Cheshire, who collects stories and truths, and you don't know if he's telling a truth or if he's telling a lie, but he collects information. And then you have the walrus, who is another boss who not only kills women but eats them, so he's like a cannibal. So Alice and Hatcher have to go through the entire city trying to figure out where the Jabberwocky is. That's the main the main thing of the entire book. They're trying to get the Jabberwocky because he has escaped, and they're trying to, you know, kill him so that way he doesn't destroy the world. It was so good. And I have book 2, which is The Red Queen. I cannot wait to read it. 5 stars, amazing. All right. The very last book I want to talk about is Here, Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. This was a nonfiction mental illness audiobook that I listened to at the very beginning of the month for the A Year-a-thon Readathon, and I finished it mid-October. It was so funny. Jenny Lawson is so funny. And I highly recommend reading or listening to the book. I'm definitely going to buy it. Everything about the audiobook, like her story, because it's just her stories about her childhood, about marriage, about being a mom. They're just so relatable and funny, and she has anxiety and OCD, and so if you have those kinds of mental illnesses, then this would totally benefit you to listen to, because then you'll feel more, you know, like there's more people out there that are just like you. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read her other book. There's another one coming out in 2017. My camera died right when I was ending the Let's Pretend That This Never Happened. So yes, I highly recommend, and that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed these reviews. I apologize for having such a long review process. When I first did my October TBR, I told you guys that I was going to do a wrap-up every week in the month of October, but I didn't end up doing that. One, because then I would have had to have more costumes, and then 2, I just didn't have time. So I read 11 books this month, so this is going to be a little long. Also, I was planning on watching a whole bunch of horror movies, but because I read so many books, that took most of my time. I did watch Constantine, which is one of my favorite movies, so that counts as a horror because it's demon catching. And then I also watched a really silly, like B-rated horror movie on Netflix called Housebound, and it's done in Australia, and it's about a girl who is house arrested at her parents' house, and she hates it, and her mom thinks the house is haunted, and it goes from there, like, is it actually haunted, or is there something else funny going on? Super hilarious. If you haven't seen Housebound, I would definitely watch it. I will leave the link down below to the movie so you can look it up. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!